Welcome to RotoWire Fantasy Football Live, Saturday edition, Week 7. We got John Ryan with us. I'm Jim Coventry. We are going to go over DFS gambling, get you all ready to make some money in the big Week 7. Look, John Ryan, almost 3 decades as a professional gambler. And recently, John just made me aware of his current numbers. He's being publicized, and John will tell you a little more about that. But his 10-unit game of the month, he's on a 92-47 run. That is almost 60. I think that's 65% if I do the numbers. Is that about right, John?
66, rounded
66,
up, I guess.
Yeah, you better round it up because I'm just doing it top of my head. And but because John always gets those numbers. And look, John will go over the site. He's their number 1 NCAA football handicapper. John has been giving me steady winners. You're the audience. He's told you to reach out to him, giving you steady winners on his 10-unit plays week over week. Those have hit almost every time. So John has just been crushing it. So like I always tell you, when I bring in somebody on the show, it's because they are somebody who is going to help you. We don't bring in people that are casuals, bring in people that are the best in the business. John Ryan is that. John, tell everybody hello.
Hello, everyone. No, but seriously, Jim, I'm pretty fortunate right now and humble where I'm at right now. On a lot of these different sites that I provide my work to, ranked number 1 in college football, and been doing it a long time, as you said. So anybody out there that wants to get the 10-unit play, send me a direct message. You may want to do it now because the game starts at noon, and there's a lot of games that start at noon. So don't guess which one it is. Just send me a message, and I'll just send the research over to you, and you can tell me what you think.
I think, John, when I get you launched in your first game, I already know what the bet is. Not telling anybody, but I think I'm going to put that bet in while we are taking care of business and you're going over these. Hey, John's going to give us our first NFL. We'll do 3 NFL games today. See Saugers in the house. Welcome aboard. Glad you're here. Anybody else who's not in the chat but here, we're very happy that you're with us today. All right, so, John, the Chiefs and the Chargers are playing. This is that divisional battle, right? No matter what happens, these have been fun games to watch over the last few years. They're usually very, very highly competitive. Even when the Chiefs were at like the peak of their powers, these were some close games. John, it's a really weird line on this game. It's not in the 3 to 4 range. It's not in the 6 to 7 range. It's in no man's land. It's a 5.5 line on this one. Chargers are coming off a Monday night game. The Chiefs are coming up. They played on Thursday the prior week. John, how are you breaking this game down?
Well, I think to start with, I think the Chargers are the team to bet here. I think they actually are the better team. Andy Reid has played more one-score games in a career than anybody else in history of football. So this is a game where I think, maybe Andy Reid likes these stressful situations down the stretch where they, have lead changes and they win by, less than 7 or less points generally. But those type of teams, then it reverts. There's seasons where they lose 1-possession games more than they win. And my research is telling me that the Chiefs are in that mode right now for this season. So I really don't like the Chiefs at any point. I know I'm going to have to use them in the Circa Eliminator at some point,
right?
If I'm still in it. But we'll have to worry about that later. One thing I will mention is a betting system here, betting on road teams that are facing a team that is outgaining their opponents by 1.25 or more yards per pass attempt, coming off a game in which they gained 7 or more yards per pass attempt, which is outstanding. Betting against those teams, and better yet, when they're at home, 72-40, 2 pushes against the number at 64%. Now, it gets even better, Jim, and I love saying it gets even better, right? Every week I say it gets even better. In a divisional matchup, 22-7 against the number for 76% winning bets over the past 5 seasons. I don't think I have to go into any more details why the Chargers are my best bet tomorrow, but that sums it up.
Yes, and and I love these divisional games too, John. And you mentioned John. We have John on because John understands the teams, the game, the betting trends. It's the trifecta. John hits the trifecta with this. Again, I'm excited about this divisional matchup. Don't even care who wins the game, but it's not going to be by 6 points. So easy enough cover for the Chargers there. John Rubright's in the house. Welcome all aboard here. All right, so I'm going to give you some DFS plays. These are also players that we could consider for player props as well as I go over them. I do player prop threads on the X Twitter. You can follow me at Jim Coventry NFL. I posted one yesterday. I'll post another one this afternoon. First of all, quarterbacks for DFS. Geno Smith is 6,000 against Arizona, and we're not sure if DK Metcalf is playing yet. But Arizona is that team. They came out and they were, I'm calling them plucky to start the season. They were playing way beyond their talent. Well, when you watch the games closely every week, you've seen week after week, they're beginning to play closer to their talent level. The little tricks they were running are on film. The teams with the better personnel now are exploiting them both defensively and when the Arizona Cardinals are on offense. And this is a game, Geno Smith and Ken Walker can be busy in this. We could see the Seattle Seahawks, after putting up only 13 at Cincinnati, we could see them hang 35 in this game, maybe even a little bit more. They could go crazy here. So Geno Smith, even if it's with Tyler Lockett, and let's say Jackson Smith and Jigba steps in the starting lineup, it might be fine for Geno going over in the middle of the field. We find the tight ends have a good matchup here. So Geno Smith at 6,000. Spend down a little bit. Sam Howell against the Giants. We know he's on pace to take over 100 sacks, which would shatter David, not Derek Carr's record of 79 when he was a rookie with the Texans, the expansion team. But Sam Howell here is this week they're playing the Giants. Look, the Giants have a sporadic pass rush. Kayvon Thibodeau is not as good as a pass rusher as he was last year. Inconsistencies across the line. Sam Howell will run himself into sacks, but I think this is a game where he is going to have a little more time than he's used to. And facing the Giants here, the Giants, I think, will do enough against the run. They're not a good run defense, but I think they'll do enough against Brian Robinson where Howell is going to throw enough. And I think Howell, and he's going to run. Howell can run for 30, 40 yards. Howell's a strong play. Now, hold the nose. We'll give you the cheap one, but this is the cheap one. Brian Hoyer of the Raiders against the Bears. So here's what we're going to talk about here. When we talk about Brian Hoyer, the Bears hit no pass rush. Even when healthy, the Bears have no real coverage in the secondary. Their free safety, Eddie Jackson, is out. He'd be the ball hawk. He's out. That's a real important part of this. Brian Hoyer is not going to be asked to do a ton here, but the advantage he has over the Bears secondary with Devontae Adams and with Jacoby Myers and with the rookie Michael Mayer, who came out with 82% of the snaps, 75 yards last week. Hoyer is not going to be under pressure in this game. And that is the recipe at 4,900, where however old Brian Hoyer is, and I should have checked how old he is. I think he's 38. That might be about right. But I think in this game against this team, plenty to get it done. John, let's go through a few running backs here. So in that same Seattle game where we like Geno Smith, I said you don't usually want to go quarterback, running back. And if you're just going to go with either Howell or Hoyer, use Ken Walker. Ken Walker, here's what he's done in the last 2 weeks. He has separated himself from Zach Charbonnet in the backfield. Earlier, we saw Charbonnet getting a reasonable snap percentage. Well, the last 2 weeks, Walker, 71%, 76%, dominating touches, getting 16 to 20 carries a week, getting some action in the passing game. He's massive in the red zone. He scored in 4 straight, 6 touchdowns in those 4 games. He is on fire. That offensive line is getting healthier. They're coming off a bye. This is a great opportunity. Ken Walker will be closing out a big win likely in this game as well. And we know the big runs are always there. Isaiah Pacheco, 6,100 against the Chargers. Pacheco is averaging 17 rushes and 3 targets over his last 3, and he scored in 3 of his last 4. When teams play the Chiefs, they got to drop coverage. And we saw it last year. What that means is free yards before contact. Isaiah Pacheco runs very hard. That allows him to get those free yards and a little bit more. And they've been heavily using him in the red zone as well. They're not as pass heavy as they've been in the past. And remember, the Chargers are still one of the weaker run defenses in the league. There will be balance in this offense. Pacheco's going to get his. Now, this next one is a hold your nose GPP only play. Najee Harris has not had a good season. But in the last 3 games, he's averaged 16 rush attempts. Now, coming out of the bye, Pittsburgh realizes look, Matt Canada's not getting any better as an offensive coordinator. But organizationally, they realize Kenny Pickett can be a problem when passing ball. We saw the big plays of George Pickens. Those are few and far between. The offense isn't working. They are going to have to win with defense and running the ball. I believe against the Rams, they can get that running game going here. GPP only, because we don't have full confidence in Harris, but the workload's been good. 5,200. Now, Deontay Foreman is 4,800 against the Raiders. He runs for the Bears. Roshan Johnson's out again. Foreman had 15 carries for 65 yards last week. That's been his norm. Half a season in Tennessee taking over Derrick Henry. Half a season taking over for McCaffrey in Carolina last year. He's always over that 4-yard mark. He got 61% of the snaps last week. I wish he would have gotten more, but running backs don't usually. But they're playing the Raiders. Raiders have played well on defense, but this is a letdown spot for the Raiders defense. They've been playing out of their minds. They're going to see the Bears, no Justin Fields. Subliminally, they're not going to be up for this game. Foreman could cash very heavily here. Last one, Latavius Murray is 4,400 for the Bills. When Damian Harris went out last week, basically it was Cook about half of the work. It was Murray and Harris splitting a quarter each. Well, basically all that work went to Murray. Murray had half of the work, 12 carries. He usually gets targeted. He didn't get targeted last week, but he's normally good for 3 to 4 targets a game. And he's a factor in the red zone as well. Playing New England in a game, they probably blow them out. Latavius Murray's a strong play. John, I rambled on here. We got to get on to another great NFL pick. John, I'm really excited. I talked about the Steelers game a little bit here, but the Rams are coming in, and that passing game is humming. Sean McVay is a genius. Cooper Kupp's back. Puka Nakua's helping out quite a bit. They won't have their running back Kyron Williams, but he's not special anyway. They get it done on the ground. John, how are you breaking down Rams -3 against the Steelers?
Well, for one of the rare times, Jim, I'm fading Tomlin here, and he is a genius in his own right as well, and doesn't get the credit he deserves for his career of doing what he has done with the Pittsburgh Steelers, having not one single losing record season. I mean, that's remarkable in itself. More remarkable is the fact they've had 3 or 4 head coaches since like 1500. I mean, It's just unbelievable, that franchise. It's a shame that some of the other ones aren't more efficient as they are, but that's a topic for another time. Pittsburgh's defense, though, is a concern to me, and I don't know whether they're going to be able to stand up against the LA Rams attack. As you said, the Pittsburgh Steelers ranked 20th in the league, allowing 22 points per game. They ranked 30th, Jim, 30th, allowing 389.4 yards per game. They're 24th, allowing 5.6 yards per play. Those metrics right there tell me to be very cautious, thinking that defense is going to be able to stand up against a Rams team that ranks 12th in the league, scoring 23 a game, 7th, 367 yards per game, 7th at 5.6 yards per game. And I think that the Rams here are the right side. I wouldn't be surprised if they win this by double digits. This team, I think, is much better than what the market is pricing them. So this might be a team to consider riding, not just today, but over the next 3 or 4 weeks. The idea is that you go 3-1. I mean, if you go 2-2, you just lose the VIG. But what if they do start an ATS run? And I think that is what they are about to do, starting with this one. I also have a little betting system supporting them, and we're going to bet on any team. Our team is facing a winning record foe, which the Steelers are 3-2. That is coming off an upset home win to a divisional rival. And we already know that they pulled that little trick off last week, right? So that set of parameters, 63% straight up, 82-48 record, 68% against the spread, 84-39 since 1989. Man. But Jim, guess what? It gets better. If the foe pressured the quarterback less than 25% of the plays they were involved with in the previous upset win, in other words, the Steelers only pressured the quarterback 25% or less. 12-4 straight up would be the Rams, 13-3 against the number for 81% winners over the last 5 seasons. Again, this points me to a solid betting opportunity on the Rams.
Yeah, again, I point this out. almost every time John gives you a pick, just listen back, rewind it when the show's over. Just go over what John said, because the betting systems he has, the understanding, it's insane, incredible, and it's why John is a documented winner and why you need to follow on him as well. Now, when I think about the Rams, people are going to say, well, man, the Steelers got that great pressure rate. Matthew Stafford's getting the ball out so quickly, and Kupp gets open immediately. Even Puka Nacua gets schemed open immediately. So I'm not even worried about, because a lot of people are fearful. I'm not worried at all. The Rams are going to be fine here. Great call on this, John. You really are seeing behind the window here extremely well, as always. More DFS. Let's go through the last few positions. Wide receiver. Mike Evans is 7,100 against Atlanta. Atlanta has been a dominant run defense this year. On the back end, they don't quite have the horses to match up with the Mike Evans and the Chris Godwins of the world. Now, the reason Baker Mayfield has had some success this season, and understand last week, Detroit is a legit top 5 defense. They just couldn't get by a top 5 defense. Understandable. But Atlanta's not a top 5 defense. And when we look at this game, Baker Mayfield, as I was making my first point, play action, play action, play action. Dave Canales is dialing up almost at a league high rate. What that's allowing is it's allowing the defense to freeze for a nanosecond, which is allowing him to get a good eye on his receivers. Mike Evans, again, 8 to 10 targets in 5 games this year. That's a very high target rate. Is downfield. He's definitely going to be utilized in the red zone. Mike Evans is a great play. Amari Cooper, 6,100 against the Colts. Even if Watson does not come back, but I think Watson will play this one. Look, Amari Cooper has at least 90 yards in 3 or 4 games. The only time he misses when Dorian Thompson-Robinson was the quarterback, and he is just not ready to play in the NFL. Cooper is winning contested catches. He's winning in the intermediate, the downfield area. He wins all over the field. Pristine route runner. The Colts simply do not have cornerbacks. They are horrible at corner. Nobody can, even if they put a double on Cooper, it's not even going to matter. He beats those easily. Terry McLaurin is 5,400 at the Giants. He's averaging 7 targets over his last 4 games. As I mentioned earlier, when we talked about Sam Howell, this is who you'd pair him up with. Sam Howell should have more time than usual in this game. I know he's his own worst enemy, but again, the Giants have been sporadic. And here's one more thing I want to point out about the Giants. The Giants, if you watch this Sunday night game against the Bills, I don't know what was in the Giants, but they came out and played like it was their Super Bowl. I don't know why. I don't know. If it was Brian Dable going back to play, the team he came from, if he got him really fired up. But to me, they were spent emotionally at the end of that game. They're going to come out flat this week. Narrative, yes, but that's part of the game. Terry McLaurin should eat in this one. Rashid, now either there's 2 players from the Chiefs here who could come through as receivers. I'm going to lay out the case for both. One's cheaper than the other. You can either go $4,700 for Rashee Rice, or you could spend down $3,800 on Kadarius Toney. Here's the case for each. Rashee Rice has been getting better in finding openings in the zone, which is helping him get more connection with Mahomes and more confidence. But he's averaging just 5 targets over his last 4 games. So the targets are right about 5. And his plays, he had the one big play late in the game when the game was over. It realistically hasn't been the player he's been. So he has a good floor, and we're hoping he gets in the end zone to cash. If Tony, his cases, his snaps have gone up every week. He's now playing a little over half of the snaps. He has 6 targets in 2 straight games. We haven't seen it this year, but we have seen Andy Reid have success using Tony. I think they're getting close to that point. And at 3,800, he doesn't need to allow the cash. The last one. Wan'Dale Robinson is 3,800. If you want a piece of that Washington game, and if you believe Sam Howell and Terry McLaurin are going to get it done for you, roll it back with Wan'Dale Robinson at 3,800. He's averaging 7 targets over his last 3 games. He's beginning to make full steps back from his knee injury recovery. You can see each week he's a little bit better. Washington's corners are not playing well at all right now. They even benched the rookie Emmanuel Forbes last week. And remember, Wan'Dale sees a lot of short area targets. So whether it's Wan'Dale, whether it's Daniel Jones, that pressure we know Washington could bring, Wan'Dale is their outlet against that. All right, couple tight ends. Look, Logan Thomas is still 3,500. He had a bad game last week. Not his fault. Tight ends, there are games you just don't get targets. You can't control any of that. But the Giants, and this is that same. If you're going to go with Sam Howell, and you think he's going to have that big GPP game, we like Terry McLaurin, and we like Logan Thomas. Thomas is facing a Giants defense. They give up 56 yards to Zach Ertz, who can't run. Now, Kittle had 90, not in the same planet, but just for reference. Noah Fant had 63 yards, had a big play against them. Logan Thomas usually gets targets. Again, tight ends is fickle, but again, Logan Thomas is a big part of that passing game. We'll go next to 2,700. You want to go cheap? Michael Mayer of the Raiders against the Bears. Michael Mayer, he was very seldom used in the first 4 weeks of the season. Well, then in week 5, all of a sudden, the snap share bumped significantly up. Last week, 80%, goes 5 for 75. It looks to me like they were bringing the rookie along, and they decided to finally use him as a receiver last week. Now, he's a possession guy, but the Bears defense offers very little resistance in the middle of the field. So again, Michael Mayer, if you're going to go with Brian Hoyer, you could come in with Michael Mayer as well. That would be a real nice pairing there. Last one. This one's a little bit risky. Trey McBride is 2,600 against Seattle. I know Zach Ertz is the tight end who leads things, but Trey McBride has seen his targets increase. It's almost like he's at the point where he's going to surpass Ertz a bit. But at 2,600, you're taking the punt play. Well, this Seattle defense gave up 49 yards to Tyler Higbee on 3 catches. Sam Laporta, 5 for 60. They have 12 yards per catch. Almost 13 is higher than what he usually gets. So those are 3. And finally, defensive special teams. You want to spend up? We've seen New England get shut out before by bad teams. The Bills are coming to town. The Bills are coming off an embarrassing win. If you can have an embarrassing win, they're coming off that. I know they're banged up on defense, but the Patriots are all-time awful on offense. Otherwise, you could go with the Commanders, 3,500 against the Giants in that same game. If they're going to play with the lead, if you're using Howell, McLaurin, and you're using Logan Thomas, well, they're going to have a lead. That means they're going to get some sacks with their front 4. That's a week to go to the Commanders. Otherwise, the Browns are only 3,300 at Indy. Gardner Minshew, when he's a relief pitcher, he's all right. When a team has a week to game plan for him, you saw it last week. 3 picks. Now, he put up fantasy numbers. It was all in garbage time. There ain't no garbage time against Cleveland. Cleveland's bringing the heat for 4 quarters. So if they're behind, Gardner Minshew's not getting that garbage time. He's going to get pounded. You could see him get sacked 12 times in this game if they fall way behind. All right, John, again, I rambled. We have one more pick that John Ryan's going to give you yet another winner. We just talked about this Commanders-Giants game. It goes right in line with all the DFS things, so I think we're in lockstep here. Why don't you break this game down for us? I can't hear you, John. Are you on mute? John, maybe it's me. I can't hear you.
There we go. Sorry about that. So that what you said, Jim, is exactly right. It dovetails right into my play on the Commanders here. And how can you back a Patriots team or a New York Giants team with the defense that they bring to the game? And I say that politely because I've always been a kind of a Patriots fan, but this is not a good time to be watching them play. And the way the NFL is, and I'll just say this off the cuff, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised either if Belichick proves everybody wrong now that, his best days are behind him and he wins this game as an 8-point dog, because they haven't been an 8-point dog since Tom Brady's first game with the Patriots. So that's something to keep in mind. But against this Giants team who has not shown any signs of life as compared to, say, the New York Jets, for example, that have shown a turnaround and a desire to win and execute at a professional level, I think Washington at 3-3 is the team here. And I mean, just take a look at these facts. And Jim, you already know this. So the Giants ranked 28th in the league, allowing 27.8 points per game, 27th in the league, allowing 365 yards per game, 31st out of 32 teams, 6.1 yards per play allowed. Now, one of the concerns I heard earlier in the week was that the Washington offensive line allows a pretty darn high sack percentage. But check this out. They rank 31st, getting sacked 13.71% of the time. That's horrible. But that's offset by the fact that the Giants put no pressure on anybody, ranking 32nd, sacking the quarterback 2.7% of the time. So I got to think a ground game where Washington has been, throwing the ball more than the average NFL team in order to get the chains moved and win games, score points on the board. I actually think I agree with you with your assessment of the DFS players. You're going to see ball control, and they are probably going to try to run the ball, even that's something that they haven't been good at doing. They rank 30th with 21 rushing attempts per game, 25th with 88 rushing yards per game. I think if the Washington Commanders get over 100 yards in this game, they could win this game by double digits. And that dovetails right into the tight end situations that he mentioned. And I actually love them. I'm sure I'm going to be using them in my lineups this week. Because honestly, Jim, you're the only guy I use your names and players in my lineups. And I'll tweak my lineups. What I think is a good lineup gets even better when I add yours into it. But I have one other thing to mention with this game. And this is with the betting angles. We're going to bet on road teams priced between the threes, meaning a 3-point favorite to a 3-point underdog, facing a foe that's coming off a 2-game road trip. And with the current game taking place in weeks 5 through 9, which is the pivotal area of a team getting their act together and winning or just fading off into the sunset. That record has gone 67% on a 70-35 against the spread record over the last 10 years. There's a second one. Betting on teams facing a team coming off back-to-back road losses has won 25% or fewer of their games on the season from week 5 on out to the end of the season. Those teams have gone 30-60 straight up, 30-57-2 for 35% since 2010. And it gets better, Jim. If the game is a divisional matchup, those struggling teams have gone just 8-19 straight up and against the number for 33% since 2010. Plus, if the struggling team defeated this divisional foe in their previous meeting, 1-7 straight up and against the spread for 14%. That means you fade the daylights out of those New York Giants and look to get Pick'em live in-game. Line's only 3. Odds are very high that you'll be able to get Pick'em on the Commanders, and that would be just a tremendous opportunity, in my humble opinion.
Man, John laid out a super compelling case on 3 games today. John pointed out in the beginning of the show, going with the Chargers plus 5.5 over the Chiefs, the Rams -3 over the Steelers, and the Commanders -3 over the Giants. John, when I look at that Giants game, I mentioned something about Dable and the Bills last week, but on the same point, when I talk about the Giants, they realistically, as soon as that game, and I saw how they put everything they had into it, more than ever, I go, who are they playing next week? I'm going to bet against the Giants. It was just one of those things based on seeing what they did. They're coming out flat this week. In my mind, you gave all the best reasons, but they are coming out flat this week. They coming off of that. If they had won that game, they might have been able to piggyback that into something, but end up losing that game. Yeah, it's going to be a disheartened team out there. John Ryan, tell everybody where they can find you, your work, your 10-unit bets.
Well, you can find me starting at RotoWire.com, providing college football, Major League Baseball, NBA, pretty much any sport on the planet I like to write about is on RotoWire. And also at thepredictiveplaybook.com, where you can find out where my actual premium bets are located, how you can get subscriptions for the whole season. NBA starts Tuesday. Man. I was a defending champ back-to-back years at Wager Talk and Sports Memo just last year. So that's another humble stated message there that maybe consider getting on board with me for the NBA season. And I'm very psyched for that because I think it's going to be outstanding. And also at on the X at John Ryan Sports and the number 1 and John Ryan Sports at gmail.com. So there you go.
John, how about 10-unit bet for today? How do people get that for you? The game, if you're watching this live, game kicks off in about 30 minutes, I believe.
Yeah, it does. 30 minutes. Just send me an email at johnryansports@gmail.com or send it to the Twitter. I'll be watching that too, and I'll get you the research. And that's why I'm giving it to you free, so you can actually see why this is a 10-unit max bet. It's not throwing darts at a board, Jim. There's a lot of work that goes in behind this play, and I believe in it 100%.
John says grinding is what it's about. We grind at what we do, try to get it. Are we perfect? No, we're going to miss games. It's called gambling for a reason, but we could get you an edge in the areas that we perform in. That's what we want to do. All right, everybody, for John Ryan, I am Jim Coventry. Have a profitable week 7.